Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about how to change your flat tyre. I'm sure we've all been there before when you're having an excellent bike ride and you run over a nail or a piece of glass or a little thorn or something that just totally ruins your ride, and then you have to pull over and repair that flat tyre. Today we're going to run through how to fix it on the side of the road. When we're stuck on the side of the road, there's usually a couple of little tools that we'll need, and the best bit is they'll all fit in your little saddlebag that will sit in under the seat, so you can put them in here, forget that they're there until the day that you need them. Some important things we're going to need are the spare tube. Now be sure to get the same size as the tyre that you have. There's nothing worse than being on the side of the road, going to put the new tube in and it's the complete wrong size and it doesn't fit. Make sure you have a spare tube. That should hopefully fit in your saddlebag. You'll need a tyre lever, sometimes even two. Some of those tyres can be very tight and very tricky, so we'll be sure to have a couple of them in there. If you need a tool to take the wheel off, find out what size tool you need, whether it's a 5mm Allen key or a 6mm Allen key, whatever size that is, make sure to fit one of them in your saddlebag, and you'll need a little pump. If you don't have a pump, you can use a CO2 canister, which is what I personally choose to use, but you'll need something to re-inflate the tyre at the other end. So we'll make sure we've got one of them as well. That should hopefully fit in your back pocket. First thing you've got to do when you're replacing your tube that you've had a puncture with is you need to take the wheel out. I've got a couple of tips for taking the wheel out. The first one, put the chain into the hardest cog that you've got down here, the smallest cog. My reason for that is that's going to take tension off of the chain. So hopefully you know how to put it down into the smallest cog there so that we've got the least amount of tension on there. I'm sure you know how to take your wheel off. This one is obviously the rear wheel and it's a quick release one. So we've got a little skewer on the side and then we're just gonna hold the derailleur back while we let the whole wheel back out. If you've got a through axle, it might be a little bit different, but this one is just a straightforward quick release here. Here we have a through axle bike. So this one actually has our disc brake rather than our rim brake here. So it has a slightly different axle system. It's even easier than the quick release. I tell a lie, it's probably not even easier. It's probably just the same, but still we follow the exact same protocol with putting the chain into the smallest cog at the back before taking the wheel off. And we're gonna do the same at the front. And you'll notice that rear derailleur will get slacker. So now we've got lots of slack in the chain there. Again, we come back around to the through axle here. This one, we're lucky enough, just has a simple lever. We're just gonna unthread it all the way, pull it out, as easy as that. And then that same step with pulling the rear derailleur down, and then it should come down nice and easily. Sometimes, instead of having a nice little lever to undo it, you need to use a tool. It's usually a very simple tool like an Allen key, whether it's a 5mm or a 6mm Allen key. But if you have a disc brake bike with a through axle, it's worth having a little Allen key in your repair kit in your saddlebag, because otherwise you might not be able to get your wheel off. This one, we are lucky enough, is just a 6mm Allen key. We just put it in there, undo it in the exact same manner as we did with the other disc brake bike, and we're going to pull that skewer out again, and then that same deal with pulling the derailleur backwards as well. Just as straightforward, except we don't have a lever on the end of this one. We needed the Allen key tool to fit in there. So once you've got your wheel off, you've already let the air out because you've already got your puncture, but it's still a really tight tyre and it's difficult to get off. You might struggle to just get it off with your fingers. So the trick that we've got here, if we were to look at a rim just like that, we'll notice that the rim is concaved inwards a little bit. Out here on the bead of the rim, it's a larger circumference than what it is on the inside, right in the middle of the rim. So with our fingers, we're going to try and push it into the middle of the bead all the way around, and on both sides. That's just going to give us the best chance to try and get the tyre off of the rim. It just makes it as loose as it can be. So once you've got the tyre completely debeaded on both sides, hopefully it's nice and loose now that if you pull the tyre to the side, you should be able to see the red rim tape in there. This is where our trusty little tyre lever comes in. We try and put the tyre lever in so it can touch the rim tape and scoop the side of the tyre back out. That as we pull it out to the side, you'll see it will obviously poke out past the side of the rim, and then hopefully in one swift motion, we can slide the tyre lever all the way around the rim, and now we can reach inside there, and directly opposite the valve is where I like to start. Try and reach in with your fingers, grab the little tube and pull it out. And then it should come out as easily as that. The most important part that everybody seems to forget is that we need to check that there's no thorn still in the tyre. There's nothing worse than putting a brand new tube in there and there's still a thorn in there and it gets punctured while you're pumping it up. So what I'm doing here is I'm just running my hands, or my fingers I suppose, through the inside of the tyre, all the way around, and then I like to go the opposite direction as well, just in case the thorn went in on a little angle or something like that. So now that we've checked that the tyre is nice and safe and we don't have any thorns that are still sitting in there, we can place that to the side for a moment while we get our brand new tube ready. When we're putting a new tube in, I was saying that sometimes there might still be a thorn left in the tyre, so we want to check that that's not there. But another thing that can sometimes cause a puncture while we're putting the new tube in there is that we actually pinch the tube. The best way to avoid that is if we can just put a couple of pumps of air, or maybe even just one pump of air, just so that the tube takes some amount of shape. That way we're least likely to pinch it as we put it back in. Now we're going to put our new tube in there. We're doing the complete same thing we just did, completely reversed. So we're going to start with the valve and we're just going to feed that in through the valve hole there. And then all we're going to try and do is feed the tube into the tyre, all the way around. And this might be a couple of steps. So the first one is just get it on there nice and safely. And now try and lift it over into the actual metal part of the rim. So the tyre is still off, but the tube is inside the rim. Now we're going to put the tyre all the way back on. We were talking about the bead before and how we had the bead there. At the moment, the tyre is sitting on the other side of the wheel. We just want to be able to push it up, over and into the bead there. You can do this a couple of different ways. You can either pull it towards you, is one way that we can try and do it. You could push it away from you with your thumbs, same as pushing it into the middle of the bead like we did before. Whatever you find more comfortable. We want to go all the way around and eventually we'll get to a point where it will start to get a little bit tight. This part, it's really hard for my fingers to push it on there. One thing we can do there is if we go to the complete opposite side now, I'm just going to do that same thing that we did as that very first step, pushing it into the middle of the bead, all the way around, so that now it's a little bit looser there. So once we're happy with that the bead of the tyre is on the other side of the rim on both sides, so it's in the correct spot on both sides, the next step is to actually pump the tyre back up. Now we've got two different types of valve here. This one here is called the Presta valve. It's the high pressure, the road valve, the French valve, whatever you want to call it. There's also one called Schrader valve. This example here is the Presta though. So we're just going to open up the little part on the end and then we're going to put our pump straight onto it. Now it's important before pumping up the tyre that we just run our eyes around the tyre. There will always be a maximum pressure written on there somewhere. This one says 130 max PSI, which means this tyre is rated all the way up to 130. But I think 130 would be a very uncomfortable, stiff ride. I think this tyre, I'm happy to go to about 100 PSI on this type of bike here as well. So now we're just going to pump it all the way up to 100. As you would have noticed, we're doing the rear wheel for this one. We're not doing the front wheel. The rear wheel has the chain involved and the rear derailleur involved. So it's a little bit more, I'm going to say difficult to put it on, but once you know how to do it, it will seem really straightforward. We're making sure that the cassette, this moving part here, gets between these two sections of chain, the lower part and the upper part. So we want to make sure that we land between the two of them. Now again, remembering back to that very first step, we said that we left the derailleur in the smallest cog, which is the hardest gear going down the steepest hill. So we're just going to try and line that top section of the chain up with that. Sometimes, as we're trying to pull it up here, it will push up against the derailleur and it's quite difficult to do. So I just guide it with my right hand here by simply holding the derailleur further back, and that will just help get it out of the way. And then we bring it up, tighten it up, and we're ready to ride. Now that we've got the rear wheel back in there, the tube is all pumped up. We've made sure that it's not rubbing on the brake. We've made sure that everything is good to go. This happy customer is ready to ride again. So if you also have any questions or something here maybe didn't make complete sense to you, feel free to send us a message or come and meet us at our beautiful bike shop here at 260 Magill Road, which is Recycle Bicycle Sales. We're happy to help out with all of your flat tires, all of your servicing needs, or if you even need to sell a pre-owned bike, we're always happy to help. So feel free to send us a message or even come in store. Thanks guys, see ya.